Hello, my name is Sarah Holloway and I'm from Bull Run Regional Library. I'm here today to talk about learning to sew and the sewing classes available for beginners on Creative Bug. Learning to sew is a very useful skill and it is very satisfying to make clothes, bags, totes, or other items for yourself or to make as gifts for others. It is also very helpful if you can sew on a button or hem a pair of pants. If you're vertically challenged like me, you may need to hem nearly every pair of pants you buy. There are so many sewing videos on Creative Bug that it's difficult to know where to start. Sewing has its own unique vocabulary, as do most arts. Learning what those words mean may take some time. Don't be ashamed if you have to Google words or pull out your sewing machine manual and go over the parts of your machine that are often referenced in the videos. Sewing also has lots of bits and pieces called notions, like your thread, your zipper, buttons, bias tape, elastic, and other components used to make your project. There are also lots of tools you need to use while preparing to sew, while sewing, and when finishing your project. Scissors, pins, measuring tape, a sewing gauge, an iron, hand needles, and your best friend, a seam ripper. You don't need to go out and buy them all immediately, but you will eventually want to have your own collection of sewing tools if you discover that you really like sewing. Maybe a friend or a relative can give you tools they no longer use, or you might even find some at a yard sale. You may also discover that you really don't need some of them, and that's okay. If you have recently bought a sewing machine or had one given to you, I would start with going through the manual that came with your machine. Also look over any accessories that came with your machine and take the time to examine them and switch them out. If your sewing machine didn't come with a manual, many of them are available online. You will need to know the brand and model number of your machine. Creative Bug has a video introducing the basic sewing machine and walking you through threading it. Properly threading your machine is crucial for its use. The video is called Sewing Machine Basics with Liesl Gibson. The next video you might watch is Basic Sewing Seams with Liesl Gibson. This explains how to put fabric pieces together for sewing on your machine. Then I would watch Pressing and Finishing Seams with Liesl Gibson. Many of the other sewing videos assume that you have learned these basics. The key thing to remember is that no one sews perfectly all the time, ever. Even the most experienced sewer has to rip out seams on occasion. My mother used to tell me that I had to be patient in order to sew. I didn't like hearing that, and I certainly wasn't patient as a teenager, but patience is another valuable tool to have in your sewing kit. Another rule I follow is this: if I have to rip out something a second time, set it down and go do something else for a while. I hope you find Creative Bug helpful in learning how to sew or in learning to improve your sewing.